Well, hello everyone, dear viewers and subscribers of my channel. With you, gemologist Olga Melikian. The Zambian emerald was provided to me by the owner of this stone to study the research and obtain a cost estimate. Yes, for this stone, it is a Zambian emerald originally from Zambia. The owner is selling this stone, but he wants $55,000 for it. But so that I can understand how adequate the price is and whether it falls within the corridor of real value, I need to diagnose the stone, examine and evaluate it. And today with you, and let's do this here in this video. I will literally post the results of my research and diagnostics. The full video can be found on Boosty. This is not everyone is interested in. More. Probably for those who are dedicated to gemology and, as they say, work directly with Zambian emeralds. Well, for you directly, the most important benefit will be that if you want to purchase a Zambian emerald, you will have a clear understanding of what factors you need to pay attention to. And what is important to make your own assessment of this emerald is not trusting only the words of the seller. Today I have such a beauty, and the peculiarity of this stone is that, according to the certificates, it has no refinement at all. That is, there is no oil in it at all. Imagine this is a huge rarity. To be honest, this is the first time I have seen this in my practice. So I am very interested. I can't wait to study it carefully, that it is so green. I don't see anything like it. Yes, it is very green. It has a rich green color. Look at us. By the way, when was the shooting done on the street? Yes, during the day. I want to say that he also has neon, is incredibly strong. Zambian emeralds today account for somewhere around 30-40 pro of the global reserves. And what is presented on the world market, the main two deposits are Kafubu and Musakashi. This is how, for example, Zambian emeralds differ fundamentally from Colombian ones. Yes, they differ in origin, not in the sense of country, yes, but in the sense of genesis, yes, that is, in what rocks globally. If hydrothermal deposit, Zambian deposit is shales, for example, our Ural Ethiopia belongs to the same type of deposit. And what can be compared with, in particular, Colombia can be compared, for example, the Chinese deposit of emeralds. Few people know about it, but nevertheless, emeralds come from Afghanistan, Zambian emeralds. What is good about them is that they have already firmly entered the market. They have held up a lot of information on them, a lot of literature. They have, in principle, been studied, I would say. Well, like Colombia from and to. What I see from purity, if we take the Russian grading system and there are 3 frequency groups, then the stone clearly falls into category 2. That is, the stone has inclusions. They are noticeable not only with a magnifying glass. However, the stone is completely transparent. That is, there are no opaque areas of halos. So this is typical for the 3rd group. Yes, and for the 2nd, it is characteristic that the stone is completely transparent, and these inclusions are not so significant. That is, they do not occupy the entire volume of the stone there. So this is the 2nd group. Here you can clearly see it. Yes, over there I even see minerals. Many inclusions will be interesting to look at, by the way, under a microscope. I think that Zombies emeralds, like Colombian emeralds, are characterized by their own certain inclusions. Yes, on the basis of which the region of extraction of the stone is most often diagnosed. I would like to say separately about the color in this Zombies emerald that I see based on the shade that is present. I would designate the color of this stone according to the international system as vivid green because it has a strong brightness of this stone, a good green color, the 2nd moment, and in addition it demonstrates that very vivid green that we expect to see V emerald according to the Russian grading system. There are only 5 groups for grading emeralds. These are the ones that were developed back in the Soviet years, but nevertheless, despite this, absolutely all Russian ones are still working on these, and so they were developed for Malishev emeralds and not for Colombian or any other ones. Nevertheless, 5 color groups. Yes, dark green is the 1st group, the 2nd is medium dark green, the 3rd group is our average green. It turns out by color gradation. This is an average dark green, that is, an average dark green second group, but according to the international system, both the first group. So the second group can easily be characterized by the trade color, vivid green, you understand? Yes, that is then, for example, just green is the third group and further. But it is vivid green that can be included in both the first and second group. By the way, I have certificates for these stones. Let's see, the owner of this stone is certified in 2 Russian laboratories, Moscow State University and Moscow State University of Leningrad. Well, let's start with NGO, and not so long ago, literally there, I understand in December or something, look, it means that we see according to the Russian characteristics, the color category 2 frequency is also the second group. Actually, as I also confirmed, well, according to the international system, they put Veres and Strongsley BSH green. Well, in fact, of course, the color is still different. Agree in real life from the one in the photograph? Yes. That is, for example, I practically don't see a shade of blue. That is, in my understanding, this is a classic vivid green, which should be an emerald. Yes, if we take the best top samples there, in particular Colombian emeralds, the saturation will be even stronger and even brighter. But this category of color belongs to the trade name color vivid green. So what do we have in the second certificate? Already hazy. Emerald belongs to the third type, by the way. Purity is quite characteristic of inclusions, so the presence of inclusions, if there are not too many of them, they do not spoil the transparency, then fundamentally it does not particularly affect the cost. So we look at, in the Russian system, they also put the color 2, frequency second category G2. They also determined that this is Zambia, and based on the color, according to the trade name of the color, they put vivid green. Well, in fact, I was also completely sure of this here. By the way, the picture is slightly different in color. Look, I can even compare. Yes, it's interesting. That is for everyone. Well, let's say these photographs are not taken out of scale. Yes, but still, every laboratory in color. Agree, it's different. The difference is really noticeable, radically. This is the same feeling as if we are talking about 2 different stones. There are even some blue tones, and look at the stone itself. Well, that is, it's as if the darkness in this sense was even closer in the photograph. Well, from photographing the color. Well, of course, it's clear that they evaluate the color not from the photograph but in person. But nevertheless, both laboratories, I think they set the color and purity absolutely correctly and correctly according to the Russian system. That's the only thing that I can confidently diagnose this color as vivid green. Well, what are we going to do next? I'll now look at the indicators on the refractometer. I'll look at the anisotropies in the poroscope, and then we'll move on to the most interesting part. This is a test in ultraviolet. Yes, why? Because if, for example, a stone is filled with resins, polymers, and so on, especially colored ones, it will be very noticeable and can be seen in ultraviolet research. Let's also use the LSI filter and move on to the most important thing, the microscope, to determine the spoils. Trion the absence oiling is the most interesting thing for that. As they say, this stone received such a special rating. Let's start excellent. Well, what's good about a refractometer? It works both from an adapter and from batteries. In this case, for me, it works from batteries. Now let's check. Yes, it's turned on. Everything is okay. Liquid. Well, to work with a refractometer, you definitely need gloves because the liquid is toxic, so it's definitely better to work with gloves. By the way, anyone interested, in principle, start using and learning this device. I invite everyone to the Gelos Intensive. It will take place on April 12th, Saturday, and in one day we will improve our skills in working with gemstone tools that can always be used in the field. By the way, a very interesting story happened yesterday. One of the students who was from the first class wrote it. Well, you know what he wrote? He wrote that he bought himself a gemological laboratory set and is already beginning to actively use it in working with stones. Imagine it was really nice. That's what happened like that. Great, who needs it? Write in Telegram all my contacts you will see in the description. So where do I have a notebook with tips? I have 776 to 602. Yes, it coincides with the refractive index of an emerald. Well, the stone passed the refractometer test. Let's move on to the Microscope. So let's look at the ballerina osprey. What we will look at is the effect. Like the Belov group, these are anisotropic stones, including aquamarines and so on. Simply green beryl emeralds are all basically the same mineral. Here is KDM, our stone. well, it begins to show absolutely all the classical variants, how it should be, how it should. An anisotropic mineral should show itself. Our emerald confirmed the fact that the stone reacts with the anisotropy that the stone should have. The Zambian emerald reacts in ultraviolet light and also through the Chelsea filter. Let's see how it shows itself. For this, I will need yellow light and a Chelsea filter. Now in this case, ours. The emerald showed itself exactly as we expected. From the Zambian emerald, we continue our diagnostics. Ultraviolet, with which I will work. To do this, I need to turn off this color. Turn on the ultraviolet, no polymers. Yes, there is none of this in the stone, but of course we will look at it again in a microscope. So, we have now looked at the main field devices, that is the stone. How it reacts in these devices, and it reacts in an absolutely characteristic way as well. Emerald should react, and emerald with high iron content in particular, Zambian emeralds are distinguished by this. Just a couple of words I wanted to say about the cut. The fact is that when the cut is commercial, that is, when they make an octagon, yes, and they enlarge the pavilion, the stone practically does not play in this case. The pavilion is of normal size and normal depth, and this is shown. I don't know whether the camera will show it or not, but I see that the stone plays well. Yes, it has no dark zones, it does not have strong windows that would fundamentally spoil it. Because the cut also greatly affects value assessment. If the cut is commercial, then the stone reduces the cost by up to 30%, and this is simply by default. In this case, according to the cut, you can confidently put the characteristic very good, plus we have already determined the color category vivid green. Yes, the frequency category is the second, according to the Russian rating system, and the second in color. If we take the Russian system, now I have unsheathed it, set it up, and what I will check the absence of oil. As stated in the certificates, I want this personally. Make sure this is the first point. The second point is that this emerald belongs specifically to zombies, because there are certain characteristic inclusions that are typical specifically for Zambian emeralds. Well, the third point is that the stone does not have any fundamentally rough options for refining. That is not only oil, but for example, the use of polymers, of colored resins, and so on. I'll also look at this in a microscope. No, well, some stones I also choose for myself. Well, with such a stone, self-realization, self-expression will be in the absolute. I think, yes, of course, he is very, it's beautiful, it's interesting. I just can't wait to finish my coffee in a microscope to look at it. Well, I've already put my zombies emerald into a microscope, and in just a couple of minutes I even found the minimum that I, in principle, plan to find. But now I'll look at the stone and what is typical for zombies emeralds. For zombies emeralds, tubular inclusions are very characteristic, as well as the presence of traces from the scales, and they are of such a round shape they can be greenish, be even brownish here. But this is very, very characteristic, and I'm literally a couple of minutes how it went. The essence of what is special is to look for these tubular inclusions and block inclusions that are very characteristic of zombies emeralds. You need to be exactly perpendicular to the optical axis. Most importantly, taking into account the fact that the grotto is a stone. Yes, that is. Here is the platform. Yes, so yes, that is, this is the main optical axis, this is the platform. Then you need to look, roughly speaking, from the side, well, not quite 180 degrees from the side of the pavilion, and somewhere at an angle. And very well, you can immediately pick up these tubular block inclusions. I've literally just a couple of minutes past right now. I can already see the first tubular inclusion. Here it is. Oh, so now a second here, it is multiphase tubular, where both the gas and liquid zone and solid mineral are present. These are characteristic tubular inclusions, specifically for shale emerald deposits, in particular for zombies emeralds. If, for example, compared with the Colombian emeralds, then they have multiphase inclusions. Firstly, they are three-phase, and secondly, they look different. They look more like such a torn lightning. Yes, and so on. That is, they have such very sharp edges. That's exactly the block structure. Yes, because here there is not only one nearby even lower, but a blocky version here, here, here. That is, there is a large enough number of them This is a typical characteristic feature of emerald deposits in shale rocks that were formed. And now let's see also, I'll just observe the presence of whether there was oiling or not. It's clearly visible by some kind of crack, yes, and by the way, they show themselves in the microscope. No, well, more or less visible. There are countless numbers of them. There are quite a lot of them. Now that is, there are a lot of characteristic inclusions specifically for Zambian emeralds. Now I will now look at the small cracks and see if these cracks were filled with something, because there will be such characteristic halos around them. And in principle, these cracks will look in such a characteristic way. Now we will also look at this now. I will find some here. So I looked at the Zambian emerald, looked at it on all devices, assessed its quality in a microscope, determined that yes, he really did not have the fact of oiling the first moment, the second moment. Indeed, this is a Zambian emerald. Its color corresponds to vivid green and the second category of purity according to the Russian grading system. What else I want to add? I want to add that this stone has a weight indicator of 496, and in principle, if we take the world market there, yes, where Zambian emeralds go, it is rare that there is no oiling in the Zambian emerald. As for pricing, on average, a 5-channel carat. That is, if we take this carat, is around $60,000 per stone. The seller wants 55. In my opinion, this is a good price, taking into account the fact that the stone has not really been subjected to it, has not been refined, it has not been oiled. I would say even with a slight discount. That's why my conclusion is that the asking price fully corresponds to the characteristics that the Zambian emerald itself has. Dear viewers and subscribers, I hope that this video was interesting and to some extent useful to you, because often there is a situation such that you want to buy some kind of precious stone. You choose, but you don't know what criteria to pay attention to. I hope that today's work with a small number of devices, yes, it helped at least roughly understand which direction to look, what to look for, and what to focus your attention on. Of course, if you want to independently learn how to work with such field instruments and be able to work with them personally in more detail, then of course I invite you to my Gemological Intensive. The next one will take place on April 12th. I am putting together a group of 8 people where I will train everyone and fully teach how to work with these devices. Everyone have a good day, good mood. See you in the next issues.